Hey guys, so this is our next demo, and it's not necessarily about drawing so much, but it's about using what we call a viewfinder. And I just cut this window out of a piece of cardboard. And at this point, we're just going to talk about composition. Like how do you set up a still life, you set up objects, but then how does one actually go about setting a frame for drawing, where to place your objects. You know, um, at what point are the borders of the drawing really impacting the grouping of objects? So I have this here, and what we're basically looking at is it's totally up to you and intrinsic as to how you want to do this, but there are some principles at play when it comes to composing drawings. And one of them is having a symmetrical or asymmetrical grouping. And that's what I mean is I've got these different objects here that are set up in an asymmetrical position. So I've got a taller object that's brought forward. I've got an object set further back, and I've got this shell set forward, and it creates a spatial depth through the overlap. But then it also, as you can see, it really sets up these nice, the way that this rectangle frames these objects, it sets up a very nice kind of dynamic flow between the contrast of the top of this bottle down through the organic shape of the shell, and then the rounded tape that goes back towards this bottle. And so we can even talk about, I wasn't even thinking about it, but the pencil sharpener I have there. And it's the way that the frame of the drawing cuts off these objects creates for what we call dynamic forces, which makes your eye flow around the rectangle, the composition from object to object. Because if we just stuck this and we pushed all these objects together and we just stuck this right around all the objects, right in the middle of the composition, everything's overlapped and it's just surrounded, you pretty much will just look centrally at that group of objects, and there really is no movement going on with your eye. And also the overlapping would obscure a lot of the details that make these types of drawings interesting. So what I would like you to try to do is when you're moving this around, see how you can, not that these aren't interesting compositions, like this one could be a lot of fun with that wire in the back. But I wanted to get the group of objects together, and so you can see the bottom of this drawing, the rectangle here. It's the tip of the seashell here. It just creates these interesting compositional devices, and like I said before, this bottle here sets up this more vertical and starts to and with the contrast of the cap there, when you look at that composition, your eye goes to that cap first, the top of that bottle, and follows that form, and that's what initiates your movement. So I would say that the top of the bottle there is what we would call a focal point. And so as you're moving your viewfinder around to find an interesting composition, really pay close attention to what your focal point would be. And so as we talked about in one of the earlier videos with line weight, by putting more emphasis and detail into the line work, we could really establish a focal point. So I'm going to start drawing, and we'll continue it into the next video. But when I'm drawing, you could actually, on my sketch pad, I've just traced the frame. I've made a rectangle. I traced the frame of the window to set up the drawing the same size as this window, and I'm going to start drawing, and I will show you what I mean by focal point, because we're going to be using all the measuring, it's just here we've been able to visually set up the frame and composition of all of our objects. So now we can even start to measure and do our sighting from the sides of the frame here. So I'm going to start drawing, and then I'll show you kind of in progress on the next video what I mean by that focal point aspect. So stay tuned.